Hi, and welcome to episode 2 of our series on live streaming. In the last episode, we covered the simple one-camera, one-source streaming, and in this episode, we'll cover multi-source. This is where things get really interesting and live streams get more engaging, but also getting your stream out there at high quality gets more complicated. So, first we'll go over why you'd want multiple sources, then we'll cover the challenges to them, then finally, we'll cover some gear and setups to address those challenges. Okay, so here we go. Why multi-source? Well, if you want to cut away from yourself at all, you're using multi-source, and it can be used for 1,000 different applications. Maybe your corporate meeting needs to include a screencast or a PowerPoint along with a video feed. That's 2 sources. I mean, gamers streaming on Twitch, they're using 2 sources. They're using their audio and video, and they're using the game's audio and video. How about an instructional video, like a cooking class? It wouldn't be nearly as interesting without a second camera angle. Live streaming is like becoming a one-person TV studio. To really make it professional, you'd have multiple cameras, supporting media, graphics for transitions, intro, outro, honestly, anything you can throw at the stream to make it more interesting. Multi-source streaming gives you that power, and it's a great way to push out a very professional product. But before you go nuts with it, there are limits to what you can stream without the kinds of pro gear you'd find in a TV studio. To understand why, you have to understand the 2 main stumbling blocks to live streaming. Those are upload speed and processing power. And live streaming takes a lot of both. So even with a basic single camera live stream, you may come up against some problems. You may see your stream freeze if your internet slows for a minute, and you'll definitely hear your computer's fan going as it works really hard to get that video processed and pushed to your feed. So as we talk about multiple sources for a stream, keep in mind that any sources you include in your streaming software are all being processed all the time, regardless of which source you're pushing out to your stream. Because your computer's working on all your other sources in the background, ready to cut to any of them instantly. The more sources you have, the more you'll start to see problems with your stream as your computer's processor fails to keep up. Most notably, you'll see your audio and video go out of sync. Now, let's look at some ways to mitigate that, and let's use this cooking show as an example. In this scenario, I have 4 main sources. I have my main camera there, I have a tabletop camera so that you can see what I'm doing with the prep, and I have a third camera, which is my iPhone with an HDMI cable, so I can go in handheld and show you what I'm doing with the burners. Finally, I have a screencast of the recipe I'm trying to make. Awesome, great. Here's one way to do all this. Each camera goes through a separate video capture device, and I screencast from my desktop. Notice all the sources are going to one processor, and my computer's having to deal with all of them, all the time. Chances are, unless you're using some crazy professional machine, the setup's gonna fail. Here's one solution. In this method, we're going to use a switcher, and the one I'm going to use is a Blackmagic ATEM Mini. Switchers like this one can take up to 4 HDMI inputs and switch between them, outputting one source over USB as a webcam signal. So in this scenario, I have my 3 camera sources and my screencast of my recipe as a 4th source, all going to the ATEM switcher. Now, all my computer has to do is process that one source. As a rule of thumb, anytime you can offload processes from your computer onto some additional hardware, you'll be much better off. I mean, this is just a lot smoother. Instead of having to choose my source for my streaming software, I have this little unit here just off camera with buttons. No mouse clicks, nothing to distract me from my audience. Let's see how this looks in real time. Let me put this on low, and by the time I'm done chopping this, we're gonna have some pretty good olive oil. First, start by prepping the onion. I'm going to dice this onion. See, I'm using a pretty good amount of oil here. Once the onions are translucent, you're going to put the garlic in the pan. If you're going to do multi-source live streaming, a switcher like the ATEM is a huge resource. Here are your 4 inputs. You can choose what to do with each of the audio sources on those inputs. It allows you to have transitions. You can either just cut, or you can choose a transition. It has picture-in-picture. You can choose where that picture-in-picture is, and you have fade to black. Also has 2 audio inputs for 2 separate mics that you can turn on or off. And finally, if you're against a green screen, it has keying. And there's even a pro version that'll record your stream and send your webcam signal. That way you have a high-quality backup of your stream regardless of whether your upload gets glitchy during your live broadcast. The Pro version can also push the stream directly to your RTMP address or streaming platform, cutting out secondary streaming software altogether. But you also lose a lot of functionality with it. For instance, you can't crop in on your sources, which can be a pain if you're screencasting. With the ATEM, you're screencasting the whole screen, so it's only really good for screencasting full-screen apps like PowerPoint, things like that. I like using the ATEM in conjunction with OBS, sending all my camera inputs through the switcher and creating screencast or graphics sources in OBS, basically using each of them for their strengths. But every situation requires a different setup. When it comes to your own game plan, the goal is to know all the tools, video capture devices, switchers, and streaming software, to understand all their strengths and their limitations, and mix and match them in whatever way works best for your production. I hope this helps you do that, and thanks for watching.